We're on to day 12 of our 20-day Genesis read-through. I have entitled this one Tricksters and Tricks, or Tricks and Tricksters. Lots of tricking, lots of deception. We had some yesterday. Isaac was tricked into thinking that Jacob was Esau, and he gave his final blessing. You can argue with me whether you think Esau was tricked into giving up his birthright for some soup, but I don't really think he was tricked. So today we're reading Genesis 28, 29 and 30, and we're continuing the story of Jacob. I am reading from the contemporary English version. I hope you like it and are enjoying the story of Jacob. Genesis 28. Isaac called in Jacob, then gave him a blessing and said, "Don't marry any of those Canaanite women. Go at once to your mother's father at Bethuel in northern Syria, and choose a wife from among the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. I pray that God all-powerful will bless you with many descendants and let you become a great nation. May he bless you with the land he gave Abraham, so that you will take over this land where we now live as foreigners." Isaac then sent Jacob to stay with Rebekah's brother Laban, the son of Bethuel the Aramean. Esau found out that his father Isaac had blessed Jacob and warned him not to marry any of the Canaanite women. He also learned that Jacob had been sent to find a wife in northern Syria, and that he had obeyed his father and mother. Esau already had several wives, but he realised at last how much his father hated Canaanite women. So he married Ishmael's daughter, Mahalath, who was the sister of Nebaioth, the granddaughter of Abraham. Jacob left the town of Beersheba and started out for Haran. At sunset he stopped for the night and went to sleep, resting his head on a large rock. In a dream he saw a ladder that reached from the earth to heaven, and God's angels were going up and down it. The Lord was standing beside the ladder, and he said, "I am the Lord God, who was worshipped by Abraham and Isaac. I will give to you and your family the land on which you are now sleeping. Your descendants will spread over the earth in all directions and become as numerous as the specks of dust. Your family will be a blessing to all people. Wherever you go, I will watch over you. Then later, I will bring you back to this land. I won't leave you. I will do all that I have promised." Jacob woke suddenly and thought, "The Lord is in this place, and I didn't even know it." Then Jacob became frightened and said, "This is a fearsome place. It must be the house of God and the ladder to heaven." When Jacob got up early next morning, he took the rock that he had used for a pillow and stood it up for a place of worship. Then he poured olive oil on the rock and dedicated it to God, and he named the place Bethel. Before that, it had been named Luz. Jacob solemnly promised God, "If you go with me and watch over me as I travel, and if you give me food and clothes and bring me safely home again, you will be my God. This rock will be your house, and I will give you back 1/10 of everything that you give to me." Genesis 29. As Jacob continued on his way to the east, he looked out in a field and saw a well where shepherds took their sheep for water. 3 flocks of sheep were lying around the well, which was covered with a large rock. Shepherds would roll the rock away when all their sheep had gathered there. Then after the sheep had been watered, the shepherds would roll the rock back over the mouth of the well. Jacob asked the shepherds, Where are you from?" "We are from Haran," they answered. Then he asked, "Do you know Nahor's grandson Laban?" "Yes, we do," they replied. "How is he?" Jacob answered. "He's fine," they answered, and here comes his daughter Rachel with the sheep." Jacob told them, "Look, the sun is still high up in the sky. It's too early to bring in the rest of the flocks. Water your sheep and take them back to pasture." But they replied, "We can't do that until they all get here and the rock has been rolled away from the well." While Jacob was still talking with the men, his cousin Rachel came up with her father's sheep. When Jacob saw her and his uncle's sheep, he rolled the rock away and watered the sheep. He then kissed Rachel and started crying because he was so happy. He told her that he was the son of her aunt Rebecca, and she ran and told her father about him. As soon as Laban heard the news, he ran out to meet Jacob. He hugged and kissed him and brought him into his home, where Jacob told him everything that had happened. Laban said, "You are my nephew, and you are like one of my own family." After Jacob had been there for a month, Laban said to him, "You shouldn't have to work without pay, just because you are a relative of mine. What do you want me to give you?" Laban had 2 daughters. Leah was older than Rachel, but her eyes didn't sparkle, while Rachel was beautiful and had a good figure. Since Jacob was in love with Rachel, he answered, "If you will let me marry Rachel, I'll work 7 years for you." Laban replied, "It's better for me to let you marry Rachel than for someone else to have her. So stay and work for me." Jacob worked 7 years for Laban, but the time seemed like only a few days because he loved Rachel so much. Jacob said to Laban, "The time is up and I want to marry Rachel now." So Laban gave a big feast and invited all their neighbours, but that evening he brought Leah to Jacob, who married her and spent the night with her. Laban also gave Zilpah to Leah as her servant woman. The next morning, Jacob found out that he had married Leah, and he asked Laban, "Why did you do this to me? Didn't I work to get Rachel? Why did you trick me?" Laban replied, "In our country, the older daughter must get married first. After you spend this week with Leah, you may also marry Rachel, but you will have to work for me another 7 years." At the end of the week of celebration, Laban let Jacob marry Rachel, and he gave her his servant woman Bilhah. Jacob loved Rachel more than he did Leah, but he had to work another 7 years for Laban. The Lord knew that Jacob loved Rachel more than he did Leah, and so he gave children to Leah, but not to Rachel. Leah gave birth to a son and named him Reuben, because she said, "The Lord has taken away my sorrow. Now my husband will love me more than he does Rachel." She had a second son and named him Simeon, because she said, "The Lord has heard that my husband doesn't love me." When Leah's third son was born, she said, "Now my husband will hold me close." So this son was named Levi. She had one more son, and she named him Judah, because she said, "I praise the Lord." Verses 30. Rachel was very jealous of Leah for having children, and she said to Jacob, "I'll die if you don't give me some children." But Jacob became upset with Rachel and answered, "Don't blame me. I'm not God." "Here, take my servant Bilhah," Rachel told him. "Have children by her, and I'll let them be born on my knees to show that they are mine." Then Rachel let Jacob marry Bilhah, and they had a son. Rachel named him Dan, because she said, "God has answered my prayers. He has judged me and given me a son." When Bilhah and Jacob had a second son, Rachel said, "I've struggled hard with my sister, and I have won." So she named the boy Naphtali. When Leah realized she could not have any more children, she let Jacob marry her servant Zilpah, and they had a son. "I'm really lucky," Leah said, and she named the boy Gad. When they had another son, Leah exclaimed, "I am happy now, and all women will say how happy I am." So she named him Asher. During the time of the wheat harvest, Reuben found some love for flowers, and he took them to his mother Leah. Rachel asked Leah for some of them, but Leah said, "It's bad enough that you stole my husband. Now you want my son's love flowers too." "All right," Rachel asked. "Let me have those flowers and you can sleep with Jacob tonight." That evening, when Jacob came in from the fields, Leah told him, "You're sleeping with me tonight. I have hired you with my son's love flowers." They slept together that night, and God answered Leah's prayers by giving her a fifth son. Leah shouted, "God has rewarded me for letting Jacob marry my servant." And she named the boy Issachar. When Leah had another son, she exclaimed, "God has given me a wonderful gift, and my husband will praise me for giving him 6 sons." So she named the boy Zebulun. Later, Leah had a daughter and named her Dinah. Finally, God remembered Rachel. He answered her prayer by giving her a son. "God has taken away my disgrace," she said. "I'll name the boy Joseph. And I'll pray that the Lord will give me another son." And Joseph was born. Jacob said to Laban, "Release me from our agreement and let me return to my own country. You know how hard I've worked for you, so let me take my wives and children and leave." But Laban told him, "If you really are my friend, you'll stay on and I'll pay whatever you ask. I'm sure the Lord has blessed me because of you." Jacob answered, "You've seen how hard I've worked for you, and you know how your flocks and herds have grown under my care. You didn't have much before I came, but the Lord has blessed everything I have ever done for you. Now, it's time for me to start looking out for my own family. How much do you want me to pay you?" Laban asked. Then Jacob told him, "I don't want you to pay me anything. Just do one thing, and I'll take care of your sheep and goats. Let me go through your flocks and herds, and take the sheep or goats that are either spotted or speckled, and that have black lambs. That's all you need give me. In the future, you can easily find out if I've been honest. Just look and see if my animals are either spotted or speckled, or if the lambs are black. If they aren't, they've been stolen from you." "I agree to that," was Laban's response. Before the end of the day, Laban had separated his spotted and speckled animals from the black lambs from all the others, and he put his sons in charge of them. Then Laban made Jacob keep the rest of the sheep and goats at a distance of 3 days' journey. Jacob cut branches from some poplar trees and from some almond and evergreen trees. He peeled off the bark and made the branches look spotted and speckled. Then he put the branches where the sheep and goats would see them. While they were drinking from the water trough, the goats mated there in front of the branches, and their young were spotted and speckled. Some of the sheep that Jacob was keeping for Laban were already spotted, and when the others were ready to mate, he made sure that they faced in the direction of the spotted and the black ones. In this way, Jacob built up a flock of sheep for himself and did not put them with the other sheep. When the stronger sheep were mating near the drinking place, Jacob made sure that the spotted branches were there. But he would not put out branches when the weaker animals were mating. So Jacob got all of the healthy animals, and Laban got what was left. Jacob soon became rich and successful. He owned many sheep, goats, camels, and donkeys, as well as a lot of slaves. Hi. Let's have a summary of those chapters 28, 29 and 30, and there were, as we said there would be, lots of tricking in that chapter. Laban tricks Jacob into working for him for 14 years, and then even a little bit longer. And then right at the end, we see Jacob getting him back by making sure that he was selective breeding. At the end, we have selective breeding so that he gets lots of speckled goats and sheep. So we have lots of tricking, but one of the most interesting parts of this story is Jacob and his wives. So we already had Jacob, and he's got the favouritism of his mother. His mother loves him the most, and so he's got Esau's birthright. So we had that family dysfunction that we mentioned earlier, and it carries on because he then marries. He's got 4 wives by the end of chapter 30, and he marries Leah first, like I said, because Laban tricks him, but he doesn't love her. He loves Rachel. He loves her so much, and then God blesses Leah with kids. And that's the really important part in that society. That's how you continue. That's how your life goes on, is your generations. That's God's blessing, wasn't it? God's blessing was, I am going to multiply you and make you a nation that fills the whole earth. So that's how we see in the Old Testament God's blessing. You put that down for me. That's how we see God's blessing. But Rachel doesn't have children. Eventually, she does. And what's her child called? Do you remember? Joseph. Joseph, the one with the Technicolor dream coat. So you can see, can't you, why Jacob prefers Joseph and why his brothers hate him so much. They're born to a mother that's been unloved, that's been struggling for Jacob's favour all her life. And then this young son comes and he's absolutely the favourite. Far and away the favourite. Mainly because he's born to Rachel. We get Benjamin after that, and Rachel dies in childbirth. I'm giving you a little bit of a spoiler. But they're the sons that are most loved because they are from the woman that he most loves. And we see all the problems that that's going to incur. But even though there's going to be lots of problems, we also know that God's going to work through them. That even though Joseph is going to find hardship. So it's amazing that no matter what life throws at us, no matter what we do wrong, that actually God's going to work his purposes through it. In spite of us, we're going to prosper because God's plans are more important than ours. Which is both good and kind of bad. We can't escape them. But also, we know that actually it's not under our power that we do them, but God is actually going to see that his plans and purposes work out. So that's everything for today. Hope you enjoyed it. See you say goodbye.
Bye.